Ultramarathons. It's a word in running that can instill fear in some and a challenge in others. And it's always good to get inside the mind of the people who do the ultra running. I've done the odd dabble in ultra running, managed a 4th place at the Ox 50 a couple of years ago. For me, is about as far as I've ever gone, 50 miles. But the people who go the further, the 100Ks, the 100 miles, the multi-day events, they are just a different breed to me. It's further than I can imagine going. So when I get the opportunity to go and speak to an ultra runner and find out what makes them tick, I'm not going to turn that down. So I went and joined Emily Griffiths. People enjoying barbecues and drinks afterwards over in Warminster, and we had a chat about all things ultra running. I am here at the fantastic Heaven's Gate in Warminster, and I'm doing something a bit different today. I'm doing an interview with an ultra runner. Ultra running is something I've always dabbled in, been interested in, but it's going to be interesting to get into the mind of a proper ultra runner and see how they prepare. They're giggling over there. You are the proper ultra runner. Yeah, their mindset, their focus, what beyond marathon is almost alien to me. So what they want to get out of their running. So I've got Emily Griffiths.
Thanks, Gary. Hi.
So first of all, do you want to give everyone a little introduction about who you are, what you do, why you do it?
Yeah, of course. So I'm Emily. I've been running now since 2013. I started running at the end of university. I had 3 years of living the student lifestyle and needed to change my habits very, very quickly. Took to running because at that time it was very easy with a pair of trainers, a pair of shorts and a t-shirt, and you could get out the door. And I guess my running journey has just evolved from there. Went straight into marathon as one of my first ever events. So did London in 2013. Didn't have a clue what I was doing, and it really showed during my event, but that really sort of spiraled everything else from there. So quickly learned what I needed to do that I didn't do for London that year, worked right through the distances and have taken to ultra running. So.
For some people marathon is enough. You decided actually that's the warm-up.
Yeah.
And I know your latest challenge that you just had to go up was UTS.
Yep, correct.
Up in Snowdon. Why that far? Why is 100k more of like a magic run as opposed to just marathon?
Great questions. I think for me personally, marathons are really accessible, and I think anybody can give a marathon a really good go regardless of your running background. For me, ultra running is a completely different feat in the sense of you learn so much more about yourself, not just physically. And I think as an individual, I've never really reached my limit or my capacity of what I can do as an endurance athlete.
Yeah.
So by working through those ultra distances, you're out there for so much longer. You've got so much more to think about. So it's not the physicality.
I think that's the thing I picked up from ultra running.
Yeah.
Is it's a lot more of the mental side.
Absolutely.
And just when you still think you've got 7 hours to go, how do you break that down?
Yeah.
That you've got to train your mind as hard for that as your body, don't you? So
Absolutely.
You're right about the mental side of it.
Yeah, mental piece of it is massive, but also like your self-care, your admin, making sure that you know the route, like you've got navigation, and fueling is a massive part of that as well. So there's just so much more for me personally to learn from the ultra distances than perhaps the marathons.
Yeah. I mean, if we go back a little bit, I think the first time we met was probably about 5 or 6 years ago doing the local off-road races.
Yeah.
Is that's your entry point? Do you think most ultra runners come through that entry point, or do they come through road racing? Or
I think it's a real mixture, to be honest. I don't think there's a one set traditional approach. I think a lot of runners push themselves to reach or to find their next level, and that's how they end up in ultras. I think for me personally, I tried to do things quite logically initially, and working with the shorter distances off road would then build my confidence to enter the longer stuff. Although my first 50k was then a mountain race, so that kind of goes straight out the window. But it's definitely a great through route for anybody looking to take up ultras.
Fab. And I'm going to ask you about your coach as well, because I know your coach. In fact, I run with her on one of my really early videos during lockdown. Anna Marie.
Yes.
Who is a marathon disabled podium runner.
Yep.
So she's got the experience. How vital is experience been to you and being able to feed off somebody's knowledge?
It's just incredible. Anna-Marie's changed my whole outlook around running. I used to think that I used to have to do loads and loads of miles and it was just time on feet and that was all that mattered, but Anna-Marie has just brought so much wealth and knowledge and experience to me as an athlete, not just through her own racing but through her entire life, like what she's done in the military and her career previous to coaching, and to be able to, I guess, have her race experience and dial into that is going to be really helpful as I move forwards as an ultra runner.
So that's enough talking. Let's do some jogging, see what this ultra training is all about. Okay, so now that we've started losing our breath and warming up, let's do some more chatting. Part of the reason we are actually doing this is Emily has got grand plans to do our own YouTubing and podcasting, and using me as a guinea pig to see how some of it works. Do you want to tell us a bit about what you want the podcast to be?
Yeah, so sort of as I've developed as a runner, I've always listened to my favourite podcasts and I found them so inspirational, but what I found is that they talk to the best runners, so whether that be an Olympian or Jasmine Paris or so many incredible people that are super inspirational but maybe don't represent the entire running community. And the vision that I think we share is a podcast where we talk to any runner, so that be somebody that's graduated from Couch to 5k, somebody that's taken on their first marathon, or somebody that's looking to get quicker over their 10k time. So your mid runners, your back of the pack runners, and everyone in between.
Yeah. And have you got an idea of the kind of guests? Are you just going to talk to like local runners to start, or club members, or
I think a real mix?
You're going to try and reach for some bigger names to try and pull in?
I'd really love to have a blend of runners, so I guess this is a bit of an experiment. I think I'd love to hear from club runners initially. I think we've both got an incredible network there with a really wide community, but I think having some special guests would be really helpful. And my real goal, I think, is to share knowledge and build an education platform. It's not about inspiring or influencing, it's about making sure that the whole running community are represented but also supported by other runners.
Fab. A podcast for runners by runners.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's have a look at things like sporting inspiration. I know for me, I've always watched athletics. I've always watched the Olympics. From a kid, I watched every single sport, but I remember watching the Crams, the Coes, the Ovets, people like that. Let's just have a little stop here. And that was inspirational to me, and athletics has always been in my sphere. And even though playing some team sports at school, I've drifted naturally back to athletics. What were your early memories of sport? What got you into being active?
So for me, I got into trampolining in a really young age. So at secondary school, I trampolined for about 10 years, and it's actually where I first became a qualified coach in sport. Competed to quite a high level, and I guess my sort of inspiration was from a lady called Bryony Page. Incredible gymnast, was lucky enough to sort of train around her at certain points. And I think for me personally, I've always been in a home environment where sport's been on the telly, whether that's Formula One, whether that's football, whatever that is. I've always been surrounded by sport, so traditionally always in the individual sports scene. But yeah, something has always been on the box to get me going.
We've made it to the bottom of the hill here in the fantastic Shearwater. Look at this for a forest. Isn't this lovely as a running venue? And in the sunny days we've been having a nice bit of shade as well. But we're going to talk about training sessions and favourites. I know for me, I do a lot more road running. I like the repetition sessions, so like the 400 reps, the 250 reps, the threshold reps of like 10-15 minute threshold paces. But for ultra running, they'll be completely different to that. So what kind of things do we do for ultra running?
So real mix, Gary. We still do a lot of short stuff. So things like a tempo session, so 10 fours or 4x6 minutes, which is a nice chunky one, working off of 2 minutes recovery. For some other longer stuff, which Anna Marie throws in my program a lot, do a lot of hill repetitions, obviously built into a longer endurance run. I think one of my favourite sessions training for UTS was actually some downhill reps. So working hard downhill and uphill on the reverse. Really good for turning, so on technical terrain, making sure that your footing is good, but working hard on the descent. Descents aren't really for rest. You can certainly still work hard before powering back up the hill. So yeah, something like a 6x3 minute hill rep is always good fun.
And what we're going to do now, because now we're at the bottom, we've got to go up, is we're going to have a look at some of the key skills that we use for ultras for uphill. So some of this like technical walking, knees, hands, all that stuff, which, yeah, it's not stuff I train for, but these ultra runners, that's what they do. Right, we are coming up to, in a minute, some hillage. Hillage. Technical term of hillage. So we're going to have a look at what ultra runners do up hills, because as road runners we just go, oh no, a hill. Close our eyes, lean into it and hope it finishes soon. But you've got to love the hills. Surely.
You have got to love the hills, and you've also got to be really patient with the hills. So ultra running isn't about getting to the top as quickly as you can. It's very much about enjoying the moment, enjoying what you're doing, and in some races it's about keeping safe. So UTS is so technical that you're often looking at your feet. It's rare that you'll be able to look up and see your surroundings.
Because it's just one twisted ankle and that's it gone,
absolutely,
isn't it? So
that's your whole race over.
I mean, as you've seen now, the hill that we're going up now, so what kind of thing do we do? I mean, this isn't a big hill, but what's your mindset here?
So my mindset with hills is very much to try and look at the horizon, so try and focus on where you're going. Sometimes you do need to look at your feet, as I've just said, but I think it's super important to understand where you're going and how you're going to get there, especially when it's quite a steep climb. For me personally, I think about fast and light feet, so up on my toes, and really using your arms to drive your body forward. So it's not just about your lower body, it's really about holding that core tight, keeping your shoulders up, looking at where you're going. I think as well in ultra running, it's so important that you don't overcook it on the hills. It's a lot about energy efficiency, so walking the hills and saving that energy, maybe the downhills and the flats, is so important, especially over the longer distances.
And what about gear, like walking sticks and or poles? Sorry, not walking sticks. Do you use those?
Yeah, so use poles on the super climb, sort of really elevation heavy stuff. But as I recently learned, there's certainly a technique with poles. You shouldn't swing them around like shopping bags, as I did for my first year of ultra running. So absolutely, you know, a bit of a lifesaver, providing you're using them properly.
Brilliant. Right, now tell me about your running club.
Fab. So I started the Maverick Run Club Somerset in January of this year. We use this as our sort of home or base, and we meet here every week. We run once weekly at the moment on a Wednesday evening, and it is literally for anybody. The Maverick Run Club started off of the back of Maverick Race Project, so an event organising company who are probably the most accessible organisation I think I've ever come across. So we meet here weekly, and you get all sorts of runners from every walk of life. We get a lot of really good runners. We get people that have never run before, maybe they've come off the back of a Couch to 5K programme. And equally we get some runners that are really struggling with their mental health, so it's a really multi-dimensional club that I'm lucky enough to lead.
Fantastic. And I've probably got one question as well that I really need to ask, is that what goals have you got for the future, and what are your motivations, drivers to keep going and doing it?
The goal for me personally is to get a Masters 100k bib for an off-road event, so a trail event. Yet to even know or understand what that looks like. I'm really at the beginning of my journey, but that's my aspiration. And my motivation is to really find my limit. I don't want to be comfortable anymore. I want to feel uncomfortable, and I want to really push my personal limit to see what that is and what that looks like.
And in terms of what you've achieved so far, do you have any career highlights so far that you're happy to look back on as a, wow, I managed this?
For me personally, it was sticking with running when my very first marathon didn't go very well, and I stripped everything right back and went right back to basics and really didn't think about speed or duration or distance. Really learned how to run again, and really starting from that point I think has enabled me to progress and keep going, whereas if I'd have carried on with my winging it approach,
I wouldn't have.
And it takes you so far winging it, doesn't
exactly.
it? So, and another important question that people always ask, and hot topic always in running, is kit.
Mm-hmm.
Have you narrowed down the things that work for you? What kit do you use? Yeah, have you got like a branded trainer that you stick with now? Have you got a bit of kit you couldn't do an ultra without?
I think for me personally, and this is going to sound a little bit odd, for me it was finding the right socks that worked for my feet. So a lot of people talk about shoes. Actually, what is surrounding your foot is equally important. From a brand perspective, I try not to limit myself into one variation of shoe. We know that manufacturers change their shoes so frequently that you could fall in love with, say, an Asics Trabuco, and then next version is completely different. So I try to be as versatile as I can, keeping sustainability at the forefront of that, which is quite hard sometimes. But for me, it's absolutely about the socks that are on your feet.
Fantastic. And fueling? Are you a gels? Are you a solid food? I know that changes as you go up the distances as well.
Really learning with that. So I've always been a gel person, but when you're talking 10 hours, gels start to not be so great
or
on
even
the
by
body.
the end of a marathon, I'm getting sick and tired of gels.
Exactly. So mixing it up. But my go-to is always something like a precision fuel and hydration, either a chew or a gel, and then new flow gel has been really good as well.
Fantastic. Whew. There we go, back up the hill, back to Heaven's Gate car park. So as we're finishing here, we need to look at what's next. So for me, the next thing I've got is Endure 24, which is a 24-hour team marathon next weekend. But what's for you?
So interestingly, I'm heading across to Westbury a week tomorrow, so Tuesday the 11th, to do a 5k, which I think is going to hurt more than some of the long stuff, but I'm determined to give it a good shot. And as I said previously, speed work is so important for ultra running, so it'd be really good to reset some training zones, be in the hurt locker for however long it takes, and move that into my next training block.
And the next ultra, did we say?
OCC UTMB, so 50k over in Chamonix, which I just can't wait. It's going to be incredible.
That's one of the big ones, isn't it? So, well, Emily, thank you very much for coming to join me this evening.
Thanks, Gary.
Had a fantastic time. Good luck with the podcast. Good luck with the training.
You.
Thank you very much. And we'll see you all soon.